All right. You're listening to Do It Yourself Music Appreciation, a show where three old friends who share the love of hip hop sit down each week. One of us will pick an album and the three of us will analyze, pick it apart and appreciate it. That's what we do. We love music, and we had to do it ourselves because no one else nerds out on music quite like we do.
So true.
That's why.
It's good to see you guys. My name is Benny. That's Dion. That's Gary.
It's me.
My brothers for life. It's good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. Good Saturday.
And for the listeners, just so you know, you're listening to the sounds of the Red Walrus. Go check him out on Bandcamp. He's was kind enough to offer us some of his music for intros and outros and such. Very talented producers.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
Nah, man, it is a trap.
Okay. He's a very talented producer, and go check him out. Support him on Bandcamp. He's there for you to find. Red Walrus. This week, it was touched upon in our last episode. Dion, you picked a doozy, an incredible album, ATLiens.
And I feel like just like all the other albums that we've all picked up until this point, we all picked albums that at least had some kind of personal sort of connection with ourselves, whoever picked it, and we all generally love them. But the other thing that always happens is that we always end up appreciating it even more after doing the deep dive, and that definitely happened here with this one. So we got ATLiens today by OutKast. It's 1996 album from one of the pioneers of I would say modern-ish day Southern rap. Does that make sense?
Totally. Pioneer is a
Yeah. I mean, there have been others. I mean, there's Luke in Miami and a few other people that came out before, like they got really big.
It's symbolic of Southern rap to me, right?
Yeah.
The way it sounds, right?
Absolutely.
It was an education in Southern rap in a way.
Exactly, and we'll definitely get to that.
It's funny, they're the pioneers, but they also seem like they stand alone somehow. Like maybe people look to them for a vibe, but no one has ever even come close to duplicating or coming near their output.
Kind of feel like they're almost like the grown folks of the Dirty South. It's like they still got the Dirty South style, but they're like the matured versions, especially and again we'll get into this a little bit later, but their first album was a lot more about partying and shit like that, and it was actually funny enough the disrespect that they were getting at the 95 Source Awards, which we have brought up before, where they actually won Best New Artist. And there's it was the very beginning of the East Coast West Coast War, that literally that night, and all in the background you have this small group from Atlanta with their with their first album, and they won Best New Artist, and they felt a little bit slighted because they kept getting booed because it was New York, and at that time, again, New York was heavy on everything New York, so if you are not from New York and you win something, and you're on stage and you're talking that shit, you're gonna get booed. So they kind of took that, and they purposely wanted a more mature style for their sophomore album, which is ATLiens. They've gone to Jamaica, they got a little bit enlightened, they started wearing the hair more natural. Andre 3000 actually stopped smoking weed, stopped drinking. Big Boy just had a baby. They were really their maturity level from their first album to this one is faster than I've ever seen any other artist, I think.
And it's clear as day in the if you compare the lyricism and even the tonality of the music, that a lot happened to the artists themselves between the making of their first and their sophomore effort. And it's interesting you bring up the Source Awards. It's such a it's legendary for almost a dark reason, those Source Awards. And it was a time in hip hop that, hey, we were paying attention, everyone was paying attention, and people maybe got a little high on the drama and fed into the drama of East versus West. But if you look at what had the more lasting impact on music in general between, let's say, East Coast, West Coast beef and OutKast, right? I'd say OutKast legacy is way more sturdy and way more, what happened at that Source Awards with, Andre especially, he was getting booed there, and Snoop was getting booed earlier, or at least the West Coast was getting booed on something. And Snoop goes, you don't have love for the West Coast, kind of beefing with them. But, Andre was kind of hurt too. And his response was more along, hey, I'm just letting you know we're here, and I'm obviously paraphrasing or not saying exactly what he said, but his message was, you better listen and pay respect because we're talented artists too.
I actually just rewatched that segment of Hip Hop Evolution right before recording this, so I have it fresh in my head. It's actually really interesting, and it goes to their two sort of personalities. If you really remember, it was two of them giving their speech. Big Boy came first, and he tried his best to be cordial, to actually thank people, and like sort of ignore the boos and everything like that. And then he turns to Andre and he goes, "All right, so what's up?" Basically giving him leeway to like, yo, just go, just talk whatever you're gonna say. And Andre said like the words he said was some along the lines of for anyone who thinks it's all New York and California, the South got something to say. Those are his exact words, and I think what kind of happened, just sort of going off with your point, Ben. They came out of the ashes of the East Coast, West Coast.
Totally, and
they
rose like a phoenix, right?
Exactly.
So like what happened, right? Like 2 years later, it all came to a boiling point. Both the two champions of the East and West Coast were murdered, right? Hostility and aggression in hip hop had come to a point where everyone was almost it's the wrong way to put it, but temporarily scared straight, like, oh, we don't want to go at it, like let's cool it down.
No, I wouldn't even have a problem saying that. That's exactly what happened.
Right.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And so what happened? The Jiggy era happened, which kind of, in my opinion,
was the Jiggy era. Hold on, what epitomized the Jiggy era
Puff
for you?
And Mace in shiny suits.
Yep.
Looping 80s samples, very basic, and like it everything just came down to having a good time.
Wasn't that basic, but we can get into that at another episode. Time. But it wasn't that basic.
More
really
basic
wasn't.
than some of the sampling that was transpiring before Puff started looping 80s beats.
There's something that like I wish I was able to ask them now, right? From the Jiggy era, and it's something I just encountered in my life recently, and it's the reflectivity of things and how it heats up surfaces next to the reflective surface. So did you know that if you put reflective shit on your windows to insulate your house, you will melt cars and your neighbor's stuff?
Sure.
Yeah. I
didn't know
Puff
that.
and Mace must have been, experiencing that, to some extent. People
those video
standing next
shoots
to
must
them
have been really sweaty.
Getting burned. You got the film crew working on it, and Anyway.
I digress. I think that, what happened, right, is the main news stories of East and West Coast beefing came to a boiling point, erupted, and then fell apart and kind of left us all shook. And then out of the ashes came the Dirty South sound that really took flight in the early 2000s. That the OutKast was the originators, but then it opened the door for artists like Birdman and Lil Wayne and all this new sound, this new way of accent and dialect in your rapping, and I think it had more of a lasting and sturdy impact than this hostility going at each other that was happening. And you can't ever take away the legacy and importance and accomplishments of Biggie Smalls and Tupac and Death Row and Bad Boy, but if you want to talk about what led to a longevity, it was the artistry coming out of the South in that hot heated Source Awards. They had the most longevity.
And it's funny too, because like just another thing that goes to like that sort of Southern stereotype, like of just like being slow and having patience and just waiting in the wind. And is it wind or wings? Waiting in the wings or waiting in the wind?
I think waiting in the wind sucks. That sucks.
Right? Yeah, right. Waiting in the wings, like you're covered, like you're sheltered, you're ready. Yeah, you're ready to go. Boom. So waiting in the wings. I don't even know if that's what it is. That's what we're going with. But yeah, just having patience and just like waiting for their time. Because I know, Ben, you just said that the Southern style really took off in the early 2000s, but they got their head start a decade prior. I mean, OutKast got together in 1992. It was Organized Noise, the group of incredible producers in the South in the early 90s. With a Z,
Yes,
yeah, with two
with
Z's,
a
two
Z.
Z's, two Z's. I think there's a Z in Organized and Noise.
Oh, really? I thought.
I
Okay.
believe so.
Using Z's is part of the style of hip hop. I think there's
part of our
some
lexicon
Z's
too.
in some Z's in the in the song names of this album's.
To
track
quote
list.
Tom Haverford from Parks and Recreation, I call air conditioners cool blasters with a Z. So
I love that.
I like using Z's.
But up until that point, just real quick with Organized Noise, they've been working primarily with TLC, who's another. I mean, like you want to talk about incredible R&B groups. TLC is one of the greatest in history, but and partially because of their beats from like Sleepy Brown and all the people from Organized Noise. But they wanted a more hip hop sound, so they kind of went out and sort of sought out two MCs, and they found these two high school kids who were just like beasts on the mic, just freestyle.
I love the way he describes what he heard when he first heard Big Boy. He said, "Oh man, this guy has the slang and the accent of someone from the South, but he raps like he's from the East Coast."
Yes,
and
yes.
And I never put it together, but like what a
that's
awesome way to
illuminating.
describe
Yep.
at least Big Boy's 90s work, because he became his own artist later on, but really informed by East Coast flow, yet strictly Southern in accent and Atlanta based terminology and way of speaking, and it was an amazing thing that we really never heard before over here. You know what I mean? Dion, I love the pick.
It was a good one.
Same here, man.
Because my go-to albums with OutKast, and I love this album. I've heard this album a million times, but my go-to, right, if I'm feeling OutKast, is usually Aquemini. And I know it's not looked at as their greatest moment because they're like kind of disjointed at this time, but Speaker Box and Love Below,
it's one of the greatest albums of all time.
It's a great, almost like two solo albums.
It is, but it works. It works. They make it work.
Yeah.
And that was their sixth album or something? At that
fourth,
time?
I think. I think fourth. I think
like,
after
there were a couple albums.
you had Southern Playalistic.
That was
you had
one.
ATLiens. You had Aquemini. You had Stankonia.
Oh, Stankonia. Yeah. I forgot about Stankonia.
And then you had Speaker Box, Love Below. And
doing it as two separate albums in the way it's structured is a way to keep creating really good music without getting on each other's nerves.
It was like the Beatles when they recorded the White Album, man. They did the same thing.
Did they really? Wow.
It's like four separate albums. They each had their own songs, and
they have one area that they could tyrant over, and it's pretty equal. And you could be a tyrant, and you could still collaborate. It's pretty awesome. I mean, I actually have no idea if either Andre 3000 or Big Boy are tyrants, but I would imagine after a couple of years of like really successful albums, making music together, and other kind of success, you probably want to
you know what you want. Yeah. So we're getting far away, but that did happen in the mid 2000s, where it seems like they almost grew apart from each other, and sadly, you had that the movie soundtrack. I'm blanking on the name. Their last
Idlewild
soundtrack, and then we haven't seen OutKast since. But right here we have ATLiens, right? It's a very unique OutKast album because the vibe, right? The musical texture. Not let's hold off on the lyricism for a second, but these beats, these instrumental tracks are pretty unique to the rest of their discography. It's laid back, spacey, still some of these bass lines you could almost hear on a G-Funk album by, Dre or Snoop, but also informed by more East Coast drum sounds. And Gary, you in a chat before we got on, you were talking about, do you guys know about how they laid down their music, you know what I mean, or produce these instrumental tracks? Interestingly enough, this was the album. Their first album was very sample heavy, and this album is almost entirely recorded instruments.
No, they do rely on samples. I remember reading that. I saw that they didn't use that much samples.
There are samples. They started gravitating a lot more to live instrumentation. So
in fact, the last 3 tracks on this album have no samples at all. All the other ones have at least some sample, 1 or 2 here and there.
Right.
But the last 3, to your point, it's piano, drum. It's a drum machine, pianos, and bass. Like that's it.
And even on the album's earlier cuts that do have sampling, there is live instrumentation throughout, whether it be the piano, the guitar, or the bass. You got someone laying down grooves, and that's what
Why
makes
do you think that is?
Well, I think that so Big Boy was quoted saying that that sample, and I don't necessarily agree with this, but he says that sampling is almost like cheating the listener. That it's not your own. That it's not your own. This part I'm annotating that, saying that maybe it's that you didn't make that music, you're just using that music. And while I disagree, because the art of sampling could be, if you listen to what Jay Dilla does, or what RZA does, or what Q-Tip does, or these master samplers, DJ Premier, you make the sampler your own instrument.
Oh yeah.
But at their view on it was, this is how we're going to set ourselves apart, and the music, it feels a bit more organic than most hip hop you were hearing at the time, right?
Yeah.
Can we agree on that?
I think so. The thing about this album, and I haven't listened to much of their other music besides Speakerbox and The Love Below. That was my real introduction to OutKast, and this is the first time I even went and gave this a listen, and been listening to it all week, and the outcome is I love it. Because I think the signal for them, as they said in this album a couple of times or different ways, the signal was clear. They were in the zone when they were making this, and maybe going with instrumental music more of the time gave them a greater degree of control. That's my theory.
Absolutely.
Anyway, right?
If you have musicians,
they knew exactly what they wanted from this album.
If they really, Big Boy and Andre, as well as the rest of Organized Noise, but Big Boy and Andre took more of a role in producing this album than they had previously. Yeah. And if you have a producer's mindset and you know what you want, and then you have musicians who can actualize what you're looking for, the results are something far different than what you're going to get with sampled music. Yeah. Just listen to any one of the Roots albums.
I was just about to bring that up. That's the reason that they are considered one of the greatest, and they're never going to leave the list of one of the greatest hip hop groups of all time, because they're a fucking band. They're a hip hop band, and they're good. Yeah. Each one of them are excellent at their instruments.
Yeah. Even if they didn't have one of the all-time mightiest, greatest MCs to ever walk this earth in Black Thought, the Roots grooves were indelible because they were created by human beings live in the same room. Now,
and they had a genius of a band leader in Questlove.
Totally, but this album's different than that. In that this is layered takes, but with live instrumentation. Now, I love the production.
Made it really fun to listen to.
Oh, it just really is. I mean, it really is.
Like the wit in the lyrics and the flow and all that stuff was fun as well. But the instrumental music was just fun to listen to. It was just, you're listening to a band in part.
And this is what brings me back to, I always stand by this. Like, you could be the illest MC ever, right? You could be so remarkable with your pen game and your flow game and even your voice. And everything about how you rap could be like godly, but if the music behind you is subpar, lackluster, or bad, then you're not going to be remembered the way OutKast will be remembered, as gods of rap, of gods of hip hop, because it is a necessary part. If we in our private conversations, we always ask, what determines greatness? What separates the greatest of all time from an ill MC? Right?
And we know the answer, by the way.
Yeah. Well, we disagree on some and we agree on others, but for me, if your output, if your musical releases don't have incredible, unique, original, captivating beats and melodies, then you're not going to be remembered. Look at Cannabis.
Again, you guys are simpatico, man. That's exactly what I was thinking of, too. He's exactly what I was thinking of, too.
Dude, the guy is a monster. One of the most talented, genius MCs I've ever heard in my entire life.
So good.
And do I gravitate back towards his albums all the time? No, because I don't love the production on it. I find it a little cheap or simple. Not simple, but doesn't...
kind of thrown together.
It doesn't make
the
lyrics
incredible. Music people, people who are knowledgeable about music, you two. Why is it? Can you tell me what is your theory for why is it that I have this album in my mind, and OutKast music in general, in the same category as Kanye West's music, in the same category as Tyler the Creator?
Well, what do you mean? Elaborate on that. Like how? Well, I guess I'll put the question back to you, Gary. Like what makes you put them in the same category?
I think it's because
wait, I didn't hear. You said Kanye West and who else?
Kanye West and Tyler the Creator, right? Like when I'm listening to a Tyler album or a Kanye album, and when I'm listening to something like this from OutKast, like something about the music, the instrumentation, something about the way that they record, something about the way that it's produced. I don't know. I'm trying to put my finger on it, but I can't. But I enjoy it in kind of the same way. I get into that same mode and state of mind. I could listen to the whole album straight through without realizing I just blew through it, right? It's that same kind of listening style for me, at least. Does that resonate with you at all?
I could totally understand where you're coming from, Gary, and I think it's not so much the style of music you're listening to as it is that. So in the ones you just mentioned, right? You mentioned Tyler the Creator, Kanye West, and OutKast, right?
Yep.
That's 3 artists that, by and large, their discography is, you don't have this laundry list of rotating producers, right? So each album, it's the same production staff on each song and each album. Right? So Tyler produces all his own music. He makes those beats, right? Kanye produces all his own music, makes those beats. OutKast and Organized Noise were always there creating this sound. So what you have is a continuity, right? That gets lost, right? Somewhere in the early 2000s and beyond. Listen, Illmatic, one of the greatest albums of all time, which I could listen to straight through no matter what.
10 different songs, 10 different producers, right?
There you go. I believe. I don't know if there's any repeats,
so.
But it's every song is a different producer.
Yeah.
But it got to the point where there's a lot of albums that are highly regarded where they don't sound like a there's no continuity in the tones in the vibe because it's 10 different dudes' visions with one guy rapping over them. Now, I think that's one thing. There is this unified act and collaborate, like whether it's Kanye and Tyler kind of collaborating with themselves, but like this, it's vocals and music by the same people going at it.
I think that's part of it. I mean? For sure.
And so I think that's part of it. And I think the other thing is the thing they all have in common to me is they're people who pave their own path. So that's not necessarily why you like it, but you will never listen to an OutKast album and go, man, they sound like this, right? They sound like blank.
Well, yeah, right on.
You'll never listen to a Kanye West album. And listen, you guys know how I feel. I'm not the biggest Kanye West fan, but I never listen to Kanye West and be like, man, he's trying to sound like blank. You'd never listen to Tyler and say he sounds like anything besides Tyler the Creator. So, I mean, I just think it's originality that you like, and maybe owning your own voice and ironing out your and paving your own path.
That's well put.
Yeah.
But I don't really have anything else to add to that.
That's definitely the common thread.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, that's an interesting take though, Gary. I never really thought of that, but it makes sense, and what Ben just said also makes sense to that too. I guess.
My music analysis is not a very data driven approach. It's a lot of feeling, but I really had a strong connection between those listening experiences.
I think we might have gotten to the bottom of it.
Possibly.
You
or not, and we can
no therapy required. Not for this thing,
dude. And one thing I notice about you, Gary, is you do usually gravitate to unique artists.
True.
Right? I've never really heard you bumping something that feels like it's following a trend.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Gennadis of the world.
The Gennadis represent. So we spoke a bit about the production styles. The beats do get switched up, right? You got laid back to pretty heavy bass, funky, some psychedelic sounds, echoes, reverbs, this really spacey sounding, which was very applicable for the album title, ATLiens. And I love the title because they also kind of do, ATLiens. They sound like aliens. They sound like they're from another planet, honestly. And it's so applicable.
And then like the triple meaning is like them, sort of being literally outcasts. That's why they call it outcasts from other, like, the general hip hop community. Like they feel like outcasts from hip hop, and they feel like aliens from hip hop. Yeah. And a fourth meaning is generally the South feel a little bit alien from the rest of the country.
Sure. AT is Atlanta,
so,
right?
What?
AT is Atlanta.
Yes. ATL is Atlanta.
Okay.
ATL. But no. Like more so than like New York. Yes, obviously New York is different than any other part of the country. LA is different than any other part of the country. But I feel like New York and LA and Chicago have a lot more in common with each other than the South does. Like the South is the outlier in this country, and I think that's a big part of it. A little bit we'll get to it, but the video for Elevators actually alludes to this a little bit too. But we'll get to that when we start talking about this song.
You spoke about Elevators last week at the end. You said that was your intro to OutKast.
It was.
Hearing this and be like, what is this? Kind of like how I felt when I first heard Busta Rhymes. But so it's funny. So no coincidence that then that's the song that during this week's listenings that I really perked up the most, and like I'm like, what is it? Like why did this catch Dion on such a weird way or impactful way? And we'll get into the lyrics soon, but I think one thing I want to start with is I think one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is that a hook, meaning the chorus in a rap song, can make or break a rap song.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many rap songs I heard where the talented MCing that transpires on the verses gets squashed and stepped on by a hook that maybe changes the mood, ruins the mood, or sounds stupid or corny. You know what I mean? They have this. That Elevators is a perfect example of just like I think it's them two singing just me and you.
It's
like, it just sounds good. It sounds so good. It feels good to
mama
hear.
And your cousin too.
And that's another reason why, like, one of the many reasons why this song caught my ear and a video caught my eye the first time was how Southern it was. Because, like, this came out in 96. We were 11 years old, right? We weren't used to, like, as a New York kid, 11 years old, I didn't, aside from vacations with my family, like, I was a New York kid. I knew New York. So when I see these two, like, dudes, with one of them in a video wearing like this like sort of women's hairdo hat, and the other one is like dressed like a pimp, and the chorus is talking about yo mama and your cousin too, like that. Just the phrase yo mama and your cousin too sounds so fucking Southern. Like that is some Southern hospitality. Like it's very familiar, like family. I mean, family is important.
So the style of their hooks, especially when it's them and not someone else singing, it's a very unique sound. It's a very first of all, their voices are very different in tonality, but when they sing or say a hook in unison,
oh my God,
there's this it's a harmony that isn't necessarily like found they're not like incredible harmonizers, like know what I mean, but that harmony of those two voices in contrast, but it also saying something in unison, is really cool sounding.
Yeah, that gets the job done for me.
Which
awesome.
brings me to my favorite hook on the album, which is ATLiens.
Okay.
Now, why is it my favorite hook? Because I laugh every time I hear it, right? Because the lyrics, at least in the first few lines of that hook, is that it's almost like as hip hop as it gets. Throw your hands in the air.
Oh yeah.
And wave them like you just don't care. Right? That, I mean, hey, you're not an MC in New York if you never said that once in front of a crowd, right? So, but I love they're like, no, we're gonna do that but this is how we do it in Atlanta. Now throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care. And the MC would normally say, and if everybody, if you're feeling it in the place, everybody say,
but no. But these guys,
gonna go, if you like fish and grits and all that good shit, everybody, let me hear you say, oh yeah,
yeah.
Yo.
And
if you
even more, sorry Ben, but even just to elaborate on that, because I had that same sentiment too. I feel like with that hook, they were kind of like reeling you in, like with the old school hip hop reference, like throw your hands in it, like exactly like that. It's like, yo, yeah, we're gonna get you hip hop fans, but then the next time we're gonna go fast and be like, oh, you like all that shit and all that fish and grits, like it's like whoa. I thought this was regular hip hop. I didn't know the South was here. Oh, okay, I get you. And then they end with the oh yeah, like the extra emphasis on the oh yeah. Like I don't know, it sounds kind of silly that we're breaking it down this much, but I think every single syllable in that hook was on purpose and deliberate.
That's the piece of this album that stays with me. And I've heard this album so many times. I love this album so much. That's the piece that stays with me, right? From between listens, if I haven't heard it in a few months or whatever stretch of time, everybody say, oh, yeah, is what it's like indelible in my mind. It made such an impact. You know what I mean? And you said, oh, we thought this was going to be regular hip hop. This album is anything but regular hip hop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why I think, like, so, hey, again, I'll always be honest, right? There's a lot of quote-unquote dirty South rap that isn't in my playlist that I'm not going to gravitate towards, that I'm not going to put on. I don't, it's just not my thing, right? I don't judge it. I don't hate it. It's just not the thing. It's not the sounds that I gravitate towards. But something about OutKast, they are so... and Goody Mob, quite frankly. From the same camp, from the same
all
organized noise.
Dungeon Family. It's all
Dungeon Family, and by the way, that Dungeon Family album, I don't know if you guys ever listened to it. No, never. Have you? Oh,
it's dope,
man.
Nope.
So good. Yeah. And it's one of the first times I ever heard Killer Mike. By the way. Anyway, the sound is so unique that you'd be to not like this. Like, for me not to like this, I don't know what would have to be wrong with me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so creative and so funky and so it's clear from the get-go that we're not going to try to follow a trend. We're going to pave our own path. And I think the people who will be remembered in time throughout all of music is not going to be the guy that has a hit song because it sounds like the hit song that came out before the hit song before that one. You know what I mean? Those people might get, some radio play, and they might get some shine, and they might change it up when the next fad comes. But the people who will be remembered and immortalized in hip hop are people and artists like OutKast, whose sound is completely unique. And not only is it unique, it is expert, right? I think they don't always get the shine for the lyricism that they deserve.
Which is incredible. Like, I mean, that's the first thing I think about when their beats are unique, spacey, they're incredible. But honestly, the first thing I think about is the lyrics. Like, it's all the lyrics. It starts with the lyrics, it ends with the lyrics for them. Actually, sorry, let me take that back. It doesn't start and end with the lyrics because, again, the beats are very important. But just going what you said, I think one of the reasons why this is so unique and why a lot more people gravitate towards this and other Dirty South artists is what we talked about before with I guess it's specific to Big Boy and his style. I mean, he has a very New York like hip hop traditional hip hop.
Right. When I think of like Southern rappers, right? This music sounds really different because I think of the point you're making. Or starting to make, Dion, before I interrupted you, is Big Boy's kind of. I mean, he's got this New York. I don't know, way of speaking, the way that music comes through for New York rap. It's like you don't have to guess very often, right? But this is different from other Southern rappers that I know, like 3 6 Mafia, Mystical. Like these are the rappers that like I grew up listening to from approximately the same era, or like Mike Jones later on. That's like they're using the same vernacular in a lot of songs, but the sound is so different.
Big Boy, I look at his flow, right? So like here comes flow analysis from Benny, right? So I look at the way Big Boy flows, and it's almost like he's informed a lot and I don't know. I've never heard him say this, but it sounds like he's inspired by Big L, which is like, you know, he'll and that's not, but that's a very poor Big L impression. But rapid, percussive motion followed by a slower part of the sentence, right? So like, hit you with the rap thing and then talk about this, and then hit you with the rap thing and then talk about, you know what I mean? And again, this is a fucking terrible example, but I'm trying to just describe Big L's approach, where it's a lot of rapid, but almost the rapid parts and the double time parts and the slowed down parts are in time with like a pattern in his delivery, and it becomes this very musical switch up throughout the whole song.
Yeah.
Now I really what Big Boy does that makes it his own is, and you'll notice it a lot in this album, is he'll do that and then he'll just throw these left turns where he'll change the beat up entirely and kind of like chop it up even more off rhythm. You know what I mean? Like he'll start saying something that's like when I really first started listening to OutKast, it almost caught me off guard, because he'd be in this flow and then he'd be like, and then you know what I mean? Like he'll like break it up and then like take this break where he's on some other shit and then go back to it. And it's really like clearly like a lot of work and a lot of thought went into where the words are going to land. And I think that might be why they don't always get recognized as lyricists. I mean, to be fair, Andre is on so many people's top 5, right? Yes. Like and I get it, honestly. I didn't always get it. It took me a while to
Took me a little while too. But he's there,
and he's god level. I love the way Andre spits, and I've come to appreciate it over my time listening to them. I'll be honest, to the both of you, I fell in love with the sonics before the lyrics on these guys, because especially with Big Boy, I find one thing is that it's a little hard to follow, right? So on first listen, I'm not going to catch everything Big Boy says. I'm not going to, he's on that new M, Royce, Crooked Eye.
Yeah.
Like, so much is there, and I really got to go back because so many things were said in such a short amount of time. I'm not going to hear it all on my first listen. You know what I mean? So it took me a while, and also it's harder for me to digest because I'm a New York dude who understands New York slang and New York accents and New York lexicon, that, a lot of what they're saying, I didn't quite understand at first. So maybe that's why. That the lyricism wasn't always in the forefront of my when I listened to them.
That's fair, yeah.
So Big Boy's flows, though, are so cool, complicated, and he switches them up too. He's so versatile, man. Slick to fast to aggressive, and changes patterns in the middle of a song.
But you also never feel like he loses control too. Like there's some rappers who do that. And not necessarily any of our favorites or anything like that, but but there are some rappers who attempt to do that, and then you just feel like they sort of get lost in their own thing,
all over the place.
You never feel that with Big Boy, never.
Nah. It almost feels like he purposefully sets it off the track just to reel it back in to keep you engaged. Exactly. So Big Boy's flows are so dope, and we're not even talking lyrics yet, And then you got Andre, who maybe he'll repeat his patterns a lot, but those patterns are so intricate and so musical and so involved, and like I love, he gets it. So where Big Boy's more of a show off in his flow, Andre almost gets into this meditative state that it's like it's not simple by any stretch of the imagination. It's actually very complex, but he'll get he'll ride the beat in a certain way, and then that wave, he's gonna stay on that in his delivery. But he says some of the craziest shit ever. He says OutKast this is 1996. They're speaking on some woke, political / civil rights ish.
I was gonna say there's one line in particular, I believe it's a Dre line from Wheels of Steel, that it's still rings true to this day, literally today, with the stuff that's going on right now. It goes, the Pope and his folks got us under the scope, but for unknown reasons, because we don't sell dope. That line right there, I mean, that's so powerful. I mean, it's basically saying, it's like, we're literally under a microscope for doing nothing. Like they're assuming that we're all selling drugs, but that's not actually the case. Like it's like everyone, like from major religions to government to cops and everyone it just has us under this microscope. And once we fuck up doing one little thing, then it's a wrap for us. You know what I mean? And that goes a little bit deeper with the Pope line. I know this album has a lot of like sort of religious undertones, but I feel like that line also sort of speaks to like the history of Christianity and in the Black community, and how it was used to basically oppress the entire. We can get into a lot of details with that, but I feel like that line was kind of like, hey guys, like we're Southern, we're religious, we're all that, but we also are not stupid, and we recognize that that's an issue. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I really appreciated that about their the way that they refer to inspiration. There is like a couple of references to divine inspiration directly, right? In ATLiens, right? In that song where he said, where I think it was Andre, right? Goes, God works in mysterious ways. So when he starts the job speaking through us, we'd be so sincere with this here, no drug or alcohol, so I could keep the signal clear.
Yeah,
so it's like hell yeah, right? And they talk about it also in there's another. There are other references in the songs in elevators, right? When you're talking about another reference to sobriety, where he said, "We ain't sipping wine," right? Like there are references to it, but the way that Andre speaks about the world, it's so pragmatic and realistic. I could kind of like, I appreciate it. I relate to it. As an atheist, even though he's talking about spirituality. It's interesting. He talks about, taking advantage of an opportunity. And he talks about when you have your pulse on what's going on. I think there was an interview actually when I was researching this episode on this YouTube channel called Hard Knock TV, like 5 years ago. And they're talking about Andre. It was an interview directly with Andre, and he's talking about when you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and when you want to not only produce music, for a living, but you want to thrive while you're making your music. He talks about why he got into it, right? It's like, I got into this as a youngster to fuck shit up. And I think there's certain, both of them are channeling some kind of divine inspiration in this. And it's very clear, and they're taking it seriously throughout. And that comes through in the lyrics all over the place.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andre specifically has these moments throughout the whole. He makes some poignant and powerful points, and not just politically and not just spiritually, but even as far as like he starts talking about sex in a way where the topic of sex in hip hop is goes as far back as hip hop goes, right? It's always been part of it, but he speaks of it from almost this like he clearly, I forgot which song it is, but when he talks about like no wonder they call it horny. Because the act is devilish.
I think that's either Jazzy Bell or Babylon.
It's one or the other. Yeah. And I mean that whole song, he'll switch it up from like he's talking about like the beginning of the song he's talking about how sexually moved he is by a woman, and by the end of it he becomes self-aware and looking in on himself and going look at how how wrong I'm acting, like within a verse. I mean, and these are really massive scopes of lyrical content that, again, I want to remind, like, things like this now happen sometimes in hip hop. There was a renaissance in the late 90s, early 2000s of lyricism, where things really kind of went very lyrical on the underground, but like this happened in 96. And this was very popular songs came off of this album, and they were saying things that were so not pop and so not cookie cutter, or you know what I mean. If they were going to talk about sex, they were going to talk about sex in a very deep way.
Actually, I was gonna say, like, just going off that song Jazzy Bell, like it's a play on the word on Jezebel, the Bible character who was basically like the Bible slut, right? Like that was like her thing. And so just going off what you're saying, it's especially at that time, like if you're gonna have a hip hop song about sex, it's likely like 10 times out of 10 is going to be glorifying it. Whereas Jazzy Belle, it actually kind of goes in a different direction. I think a song like Jazzy Belle wouldn't really fly these days because like it really toes a thin line between like concern about like, you know, the way women are portrayed and you know, particularly black women, but women in general and how they're portrayed and you know, the you know, sexuality and everything like that, and slut shaming. Like, it really does. Like, that's the one track on this album that the track is great. Like, the rhymes, everything is great. Like, I love listening to it. But, you know, really listening to the message, and like, this sounds a little bit like slut shaming. I'm not sure if
it was rare. It was rare to hear that, but like, it was a nuanced view on what's going on, and it looks at society in a kind of you know, it's not mocking. Right?
No.
Certainly it's more a song about a society, what they perceive as a societal ill. Right, like, and right around this time, there was a song Tupac put out called "Wonder Why They Call You Bitch."
Yeah,
you guys heard that?
Great song, great song.
I mean, just I don't know, just impactful, right? And it tells a broader story than like somebody being promiscuous and thoughtless, right? It talks about societal impact. Same here.
Real quick, Ben, I know you have a point to get to, but just on the Tupac thing, there was that, but then like I believe from his first album, he had, you know, one of the still to this day, one of the most impactful songs in hip hop history, Brenda's Got a Baby. I mean, like the message in that, and like, you know, if you look at the episode of Hip Hop Evolution, there was a female journalist from back then who said like what that song did and how shocking it was that in like early 90s, this, you know, a man writes a song about a teenage black girl going through a pregnancy, and like the one line where she goes like she didn't know what to throw away and what to keep. The journalist in the interview or in the documentary started tearing up because she's like, that's so fucking real, and like people in hip hop, like people don't talk about that. Like, and again, this is early Tupac, and then like 4 or 5 years later, you have a song like Jazzy Belle where it's the same thing. Like most hip hop, and again, I know I'm saying I'm not shitting on it, but I'm kind of saying it is. Like it's kind of like sort of slut shaming, but at the same time, it also is trying to bring awareness. Something that a lot of hip hop songs back then didn't do. I mean, this is before the time. Like this is around early Common, early like, you know, sort of woke. Like wokeness really wasn't a thing yet in hip hop. Right. So for these guys who are on top of the game to release a song like this, it kind of says something.
Deep introspective things, you know, are said, and again, I want to give the shine to Andre for the introspective stuff. I'd say both of them have this kind of stream of conscious, like they didn't have a plan going in to this album. It's all over the place. The themes are all over the place. Some of the songs go from theme to theme to theme, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That I some of my favorite projects are like that, but really deep things are said, right? Like we mentioned Big L before, who's incredible, who's just one of the illest ever. If you listen to his, like, you know, the stuff that, you know, he was able to make before he tragically passed away, you know, but you're never gonna hear Big L say something that makes you look inward and go, wow, I wonder where I stand on that. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, you are ill, Big L. you are a beast, you know? Like, so, you know, and that's not to say that's bad. There's a major place in hip hop for braggadocious rhymes, but you know, if they're being braggadocious in this album, it's on a level and it's on a way to say that no, we're gonna do it like this, and they do that. They compare themselves to the rest of the hip hop.
They wouldn't be rappers in the 90s if they didn't.
And one thing I love, and I always believe this, if you're gonna spend your time critiquing and saying that other shit is whack, you better be fucking dope.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And they back it up with dopeness out every orifice, man.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just on
microphones at all different heights.
Wait, what's that? We just got microphones on heights. All right, I'm with it.
Just Gennady.
Just Gennady.
Every orifice.
Speaking of Dre's sort of deep style, there's a 4 bars that I really loved on Wheels of Steel that go off of that. He goes, yeah, we take no shit like stopped up commodes, gotta collect calls, they done locked up my folks, low blow hit me in the left ventricle, we won't be able to ride out to 2004. Now that, like, it's funny enough, I always, like, those are one of the lines that I always remember from, like, back in the day of listening to this album, is that, like, the way he says that 2004, like, very, you know, very, like, southern or whatever. But it wasn't until now that I realized like what that line or what those bars are really saying. They're basically saying it's like, and it's something that isn't really talked about. Like, you know, how many times in hip hop do people talk about, you know, them going to jail or friends going to jail and spending all this time, and it's all bravado. It's like, yeah, man, I did that bit. I did a 10-year bit, blah, 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 and every, you know. This line is talking about, no. This is like, you know, the reality is I got a friend that's going to jail. This is my boy. We're just chilling, and I'm not going to be able to hang out with my friend for another 8 years. Like, this is a low blow. Like, yeah, like, do the bit, be tough guy and all that kind of stuff. That's what everyone else in hip-hop is saying. But what I'm saying is that, okay, that's fine, but this shit also hurts. Like, I'm losing my friend for 8 years. Like, it's 1996. I'm not going to be able to chill with him until we're past, you know, the new millennium. So I think that was kind of like, that was another one of those like sort of deep lines that like on the surface, again, like on the surface, like thinking about it, it's like, oh yeah, that's a dope line, that's dope rhyme and everything like that. And you realize like, no, there's some deep shit that really is subject matter that's not really talked about that much. You know?
They fall into the category of delivery that needs to be picked apart to be fully digested. You know what I mean? Sure. We were talking about it with Jizza actually, that Jizza says some things that you have to really go, oh, that word represented this and this and this and this and this, and you have to follow the train of thought to fully grasp what the narrative was of his bar, and Dre's like that. Andre's really like that, and so is Big Boy. Big Boy is, really dope lyricist too. I tend to be more moved by Andre's lyrics, just. They make more of an indelible impact on me, but that's just me. Me personally, if you follow their career later on, I'm more of a speaker box than a Love Below guy. Of those two records that released together, you know what I mean? I think that the funk that Big Boy brought did so much for the sound of OutKast that it almost. I don't know. I gravitate towards speaker box over.
I think I do too, because it's the more hip hop of the quote unquote hip hop of the two.
It also
albums.
Sounds like a P-Funk record, man.
Yeah,
but maybe we'll do it another time.
You know, when they use their voices to harmonize, it was some of the best sounding music I've ever heard. It was so memorable. There were a couple of tracks, like you mentioned, Benny, where they harmonize, and even like just singing a little bit over the track, like in that song Millennium. It's who's doing that there? Is it Big Boy or Andre? I just gotta know now. It is Andre.
What? Oh yeah.
Love
that.
Yeah.
Such a creative.
I know it's so simple, but it's not.
He was just channeling. He's like, I gotta get this out. And just did not. It sounded so good, didn't bother to put lyrics to it. That's a cool way to make music, and that's the only kind of way they're making music, when they're channeling divine inspiration.
Can I just say? I knew you were going to bring that up, Gary. I remember listening to them go,
like, damn.
And I was like, Gary's going to bring that shit up.
That's the word that came to mind. That's not even a South associated word. It's not anything that they would say. But like, to me, growing up in the 90s in New York, that's outside.
You know what's funny too with that? I didn't realize this until, because it's said so low that I didn't really pay attention to realize this is being said, but reading the lyrics as they're saying the shit, there's a woman in the background that's saying some things that are themes of the album. Like from the first one, she goes planets and stars. Next one,
some space.
Earth,
she's talking
Jupiter,
some space
Mars.
shit.
But then she goes clothes, hoes, cars, and then she goes, it's who you are. Like that. That's all like in the background. And while they're like they're saying this like melodic like it's kind of dope. It's like it's kind of matter of fact. It's like this is what the album's about. So what? Yeah, we're spitting nonsense, and we're also talking about space shit and clothes, cars, and money. We're from the South.
And
what do you want?
It's a perfect little slice of like why this album and why OutKast is so fucking cool, because not only is it a vibe, and not only are they lyricists, but the layers, right? Like when enough thought and enough work and enough effort is put into a track that like you could hear for the first few times, and then hear someone singing underneath, and then listen to the instrumentation below it. It is a layered and dense album there for you to like. Again, what has happened, right? The three of us have been doing this for a little while now. We've been paying more attention to whatever the subject is than we ever have, probably, right? So I love an artist that rewards that. So, this is not just hip hop, but there's plenty of artists that don't reward that, right? That what you have is a surface level jam to dance to nod your head to. But if you actively listen and dig past that, you're not going to find much besides air. You know what I mean? Whereas you could keep digging on an OutKast record and keep picking apart and keep finding a layer underneath the last layer, and I love that about them. Great.
Like I said, what I just alluded to with the 2004 line, like it's it's got this one level, then it's got a deeper level, it's got an even deeper. It depends on how you want to listen to it, and like on that particular day,
I'd like to talk about Andre's verse on the song "Whalin'." It really it resonated with me, or at least it was one of those moments where I said this guy's ahead of his time. This is 1996. I'm just gonna go through it right now. He goes, "I felt the pressure like sun shining while raining at the same time. I kept on rhyming, not complaining. Storm braining cats and dogs. My catalog be the size of golf balls. Throw up your Daisy Dukes. I'm hazardous to all you boss hogs." Yo,
that's.
I mean, I don't know if you guys watch Dukes of Hazzard, but so your Dukes are your fists, right? Mm-hmm. Daisy Dukes was a character from the Dukes of Hazzard, and Boss Hog
was like the main bad guy, right?
I believe so. I
didn't watch it. I knew Boss Hog would be the villain.
So, but I'm just saying, let's go back through that. He goes, "Throw your Daisy Dukes up." Well, the line before, it's rhyming with the line before, which is, "My catalog be the size of golf balls. Throw up your Daisy Dukes. I'm hazardous to all you boss hogs." Ugh, what? And he goes, "And Roscoe P. Cole people who caboose my locomotive," right? But enough of that.
I love the word caboose.
He goes, "But enough of that. Everyone could rap, but let's say gift. Suppose if I use my gift of gab to boast and brag in every rhyme I compose, won't y'all get sick of that? Cause I know I do when I hear those." Like, yo, it's just again, I'm delivering it. I'm delivering it as in spoken fucking suburban white boy voice, but it is incredible when you hear him spit this. I know I do when I hear those flows that ain't hip hop. You find that shit in the gift shop. That's the line.
I love that.
You find that shit in the gift shop. This shit is toy, bro. Oh, man.
You don't get no toy, boss. Yo, that song going, that song is I think the only, if I were to pick, like, remember we were saying in past episodes how like every album I think has like that one pure like homage to hip hop song. I think that's Whalin' on this song. It's the only one where it's like there's no frills in the beat. Like it's a dope beat, but there's no frills. It's standard. There's not much scratching, not much DJ ad-libbing. It's a tight verse. It's a looped hook from CeeLo, and it's another tight verse, and then you're out the song. It was 2 minutes, I think, right? This song, I think the song is 2 minutes long. Yeah, it is.
Remarkable
it's the shortest song on the track on the album. Aside from the intro, it's the shortest song on the album. But it's because, like, again, like that is. I really do think now that I kind of brought that up a few weeks ago. I really do think that every good hip hop album has that one pure homage to hip hop, and this is it. Whalin'.
Well, that's interesting, man. I've never listened to albums with those ears looking for that, but now I'm going to. Mm-hmm. How remarkable is it that CeeLo Green, who literally became like an R&B superstar, got his start in the dungeon in this dusty basement studio.
Goody Mob and shit.
With Goody Mob and OutKast. Yo, Gary, have you heard the Goody Mob records at all?
I'm thinking I gotta check out some Goody Mob.
Well, don't you could wait because we're gonna do Soul Food one day, which is their first album.
Good. Okay.
And it's powerful and it's awesome and it's.
Also, if you remember, Kanye, that was one of the first artists that he worked with when he was a teenager, was a couple of Goody Mob songs, I think, towards the end of the 90s.
I did not know that.
Yeah. Like, he was 18 years old. Like, it was, like, he brand new. But I remember it was, sorry, not that I remember, because I didn't remember Kanye back then. But it
there's
was, like,
the connection.
Big deal that, exactly.
This is it. This is what I was referring to at the top of the episode. This is the shared DNA.
So,
what else we got?
What do we leave? What do we leave out? Anything?
I touched earlier on the religious aspect of the album. It definitely has a lot of that. I mean, literally from the intro track. One of the times I listened to it this week, I just had it in the background. Me and Kate were just hanging out, and the first thing she thought, Kate being a person that grew up in like Bible Belt, Ohio, and grew up around that. So the first thing she heard as soon as we started listening to the intro, she's like, "This sounds like church music." And I was like, you're absolutely right. That's by design. So like, there's a few songs. I mean, the intro, "You May Die," "Jazzy Bell," which you said is take on Jezebel from the Bible, "Babylon," a Bible thing. Decatur Psalm is like literally that. I mean, there's four tracks right there where in the title it's got Bible references, and that just speaks again to just the South and how important
they were really
religious.
Yeah, they were cut from that cloth of you know what I mean, church going.
Is that a thing in the South in cities like Atlanta where there's just a higher percentage of people that are religious?
Oh yeah, I mean the Bible Belt is the Bible Belt for a reason. It's yeah. I mean, education for me. Let's put it this way: all those mega churches that you always see that have have capacity, those are all in the South. Those are all in the South. Florida, Texas, Alabama, like.
So they were making music for the community, right? They were making music directly for the community.
Sure.
I mean, this album gave me a bit of a nuanced look at a place like Atlanta in a way I never had before. Just the highs and the lows, right? I just got a new car and I'm like, it's spring and I'm graduating high school. Let's take the whole family for a ride. That kind of thing, that kind of feeling. To my friend is incarcerated. I'm not going to see him for years. Just truly the highs and the lows from a totally alien community from my own. I thought that was really. I mean, it was as a listener, it was. I was enthralled, right?
I imagine it's like what someone in Atlanta might have thought when they heard Illmatic for the first time. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were picturing my life.
Well, yeah. Or someone adjacent to you. Yeah, man. The song E.T. Extraterrestrial is fucking dope. Just Just such a great, that's what this week's listening to this album reinforced and really elevated my opinion of their lyricism. Like I love OutKast. I love them, but there's artists who I listen to 4 times as much, like I'll always go back to Doom.
And you're a big lyrics guy, Benny. Like you listen to underground hip hop primarily, I think, for the for the lyricism.
I listen to whatever I listen to. I don't know, if there's words spoken or sung, I want to be able to vibe with what's rapped or sung in any genre of music. Yeah. Lyrics are very important to me. You know what I mean? Unless they're decidedly funny and don't necessarily have to be important. Sure. But if you're a rapper, your voice and your words are your instrument, man. You better back that shit up, man. Yeah. Or I mean, you don't have to. There's plenty of people who will listen to you, but I won't.
Oh yeah. I guess I meant more for me. And actually, you know what, Ben? That's actually more of a thing for you too. Because I admit, I listen to some garbage artists that I just like. This has a good beat. I spent
like 2 years listening to Mystical. I was really, really into it.
Hey, I have no idea what the fuck. You sound like a fucking bird.
Hey, that song with Busta still slaps.
That slaps.
It slaps.
By the way, I found out through Hip Hop Evolution that a bunch of terms, including that, like literally the term "that slaps," comes from E40. I didn't realize that. Like, I also like the term "it's all good." E40, like E40.
Yeah, he coined a lot of phrases.
He coined a lot, but like that's getting off on a tangent there. But you talked about E.T. There was something I kind of had like a weird sort of vibe. Hang with me for a second. So the hook, right, and the whole beat is the entire beat is very spacey. It's probably the most spacey beat on the whole album. Yeah. I kind of tell me if you agree with this. I kind of had the vibe of when you listen to the song when it first comes on, right? Your head is almost like you're almost like floating. It's like you're in that like very empty but large space. That's like kind of what it makes you feel like.
A void.
And, the void. A void, exactly. But then when each of them come in with their verses, it's almost like they're like they have a gravitational pull. That's like kind of pulling you down like forcefully. It's almost like think of like a helium balloon. I feel like I'm like a helium balloon, and like when they start rapping, they're slowly bringing down the helium. They feel the resistance, but they're slowly bringing me down to earth. right? And as soon as they stop, meaning again when they go into the chorus and when they end the song, they let go of the balloon, and now I'm floating again. Like not necessarily going straight up, but I'm just like sort of floating. So Big Boy's verse first, and then when Dre comes back from the chorus, he's grabbing my string again, bringing it down. They're just like, you know, and then he stops his verse, and then I'm off again. Now I'm floating. Listen to that song again with that lens. Let me know what you think.
D, you just put into words something that I felt twice this week while listening to that song, that I was like, how do I verbalize this?
Yeah.
We're really sharing a brain lately, man.
Lately. Nickelodeon watching a bunch of kids.
Fuck yeah, it was Nickelodeon watching a bunch of kids. Nicktoons, baby. And then the other thing I completely forgot about, the most fucking Bible thing on this album is probably the last track before the Elevators remix. That biblical verse that dude spits. What's his name?
Oh, you're talking about hold on. It's on Elevators?
No, not Elevators. On 13th floor. 13th floor.
Oh, 13th floor. The outro.
Yeah, the outro. Yeah, but that dude, Big Rube. That
spoken word. Yeah.
That's very, very religious. Had one controversial line. One controversial line that ain't gonna fly today. I'm not gonna repeat it. But aside from that,
I gotta look it up.
Yeah, but like very like that's how they chose to close the album. I mean, I never. This came up last week too, I think. I generally don't like. I consider the end of it like if an album has a bonus track, like I don't consider that bonus track the end of the album. You shouldn't, right? So really,
I don't even consider the 7th Chamber remix on Wu-Tang part on 36 Chambers as part of 36 Chambers.
Interesting.
It's weird. Anyway, keep going. Because of that, the 13th floor really is the ending, and they're ending their album by pumping you with, it's like, hey, just again Bible shit, you know, we're gonna hammer you with the religious shit, but then they end with some dope MCing. So someone really important in my life said to me once, be quick to see where religious people are right. So like I have my own opinions of organized religion. I have my own distancing from even my own religious upbringing. You know, I always make the joke that I'm Jew-ish, but like, you know, like, but I love that advice. Be quick to see where religious people are right, because there's some incredible morals and life lessons to live by, even if it's in a religion that you're not brought up in, that you don't subscribe to, that you don't bow to. There's wonderful things to learn from all religions, sure. and they're in these messages that OutKast is spitting. Yeah, I mean,
exactly. Like that's exactly, you know, the kind of message that they're saying on this album. Like they're trying to sort of be more realistic with it, knowing that look, the average hip hop fan may not be a regular every Sunday churchgoer, but there are some, like you just said, there are some values to take out of it, so we're gonna include it on here.
Not some, man. I'm Jewish. There are teachings in the Christian upbringing that are so incredible, right? Like specifically on forgiveness and almost like the spiritual law that if you're not going to forgive the person that wronged you, how could you expect forgiveness for the wrongs you've done? Stuff like that. Like it's all over it, you know, sure. In Christian teachings that I've applied to my own life. So, you know, there's a lot to learn from those things. And there's a lot that you don't have to subscribe to in order to learn from it. But and I like that. I think they might have gotten somewhat further away from Christian themes later on, a little more funky. You know, by Stankonia, they were on a experimental like high and really all over the map. But this really feels like their most rooted, or at least singular vision album of all of them. You know what I mean? Like it's such a smooth listen from start to finish. There's a continuity and like even though the lyrical themes are all over the place, there's this there's like a straight line the whole way through, which to me leads. I'm an album guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. And it was one of those albums, right?
It's almost a concept album in a way, kinda. Not really, but kinda.
But the concept was an elusive concept. I was trying to put it into words also, and the only words I could find is "this sounds mad nice." That's the concept. It permeated this album.
Well, I think like if you're gonna say it's a concept album, I think the shared theme is a vibe, not necessarily lyric. There are repeated lyrical themes throughout, but there's also as much as they're talking Christianity and spiritual teachings, they're talking pimp culture.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I guess I more meant like the
and
themes,
violence,
like the concept theme, and that's why like I said kinda, like emphasis on kinda is literally right there in the title. It's the aliens thing. It's just the spacey kind of aliens, like, you know,
that's
vibe.
The vibe.
That's what they sort of keep coming back to. And I don't know about every track, but I feel like I could venture to say probably every track in this album has at least one line that mentions something about space.
Totally.
But again, very loose. It's not a concept album, but it's close to. It's close to with those themes.
Hey, did we miss anything? I think we.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, why don't we talk about what we're going to listen to next week?
Gary.
Well, let's you want to take this out? Final thoughts. We got final thoughts for ATLiens, or we kind of
let's do last licks.
Yeah.
So you go, D, then me, then Gary.
I mean, just so this album, again, it's always been one of my favorite albums. What was funny is that I'm doing I know Ben is doing the same thing too. This posting an album a day on Facebook, albums that are influenced by musical taste and everything like that. And I naturally today, I'm in the middle of it. Today I chose ATLiens because it really is one of my favorite albums. And all this listen did was just solidify that. Kind of made me wonder actually in going off of that, the sort of space vibe. I wonder how much influence Kool Keith had on them. From a lot, like from the beats to the sort of weird flow. Now, I mean, no one is as weird as him. These guys aren't close to being as weird as him, but like that sort of like different kind of flow, the space vibe. Like there's
they're wizards.
There's exactly. Just in general, as I said, this was a fun week. I'd gone through OutKast phases like all the rest of us, and I was really happy to revisit this, and especially again, just that song "Elevators" is one of my favorite songs. Actually, "Wheels of Steel" too. Those are two of my favorite OutKast songs, but "Elevators" was the first one I heard. The video is insane. If you guys haven't seen the music video, it's crazy. I enjoyed this one, guys.
Awesome. Real quick, for everyone listening and for you guys too, I heard an interview with Andre where he compared OutKast to Tribe when he basically said, especially in the beginning of our career, we were basically just Southern Tribe. Now, it took me a minute because their sonic palette or their sonic output is not Tribe at all. But when you break it down to Dre being the abstract poet and Big Boy being the raspy battler, more aggressive, both saying thought-provoking, woke, political, spiritual themes in an otherwise more aggressive community of rappers around them. You know what I mean? They really, once I heard Dre say that, I was like,
that's amazing.
Shit. They really were like Southern Tribe. And he was almost kind of embarrassed to say it, that like he modeled so much of his lyrical approach off of what Tip did. But anyway, food for thought for the listener, if you're into Tribe Called Quest and OutKast to make comparisons.
Nice.
For me, this week and this album reinforced what I already knew, which was this is a rap group, a duo, an artist that stands alone, and I appreciate artists who don't release music in trend with other music around them. And I think we're especially now, the state of hip hop is that is that people are gonna release music to follow a theme of artists that had made music right before them, and there's this really it wasn't like that. You had to be original at one point, but these guys are truly trailblazers, and never even once have I heard an OutKast song or album where I'm going, oh,
yep.
they were listening to the new Kendrick album. You know what I mean? How many times have you heard an artist going, oh man, they've been listening to Drake? You know what I mean? Like, so, or they were trying to do Drake. You know, that you'd never accuse OutKast of being anything besides original and genius. Man, just one of the greatest ever. So
yep.
I love this album, and I love listening to it.
Nice.
Gary, what, take us out, your thoughts, and then maybe what we're gonna be looking forward to next week, my man.
Yeah. Okay. My thoughts on this album were, I mean, you guys said it. Yeah, the two dope boys. That's how I would close this out. Two dope boys in a Cadillac. I love it. I love that. I love the image of it. I love that it plants you right into Atlanta, a city that I haven't spent time in, and that I was educated about, and about the culture surrounding this album. Through these songs. It was really cool. These are good wizards. And lots of Z's in this album. Two dope boys with a Z, Wheels of Steel. That's a Z at the end of Wheels. It's my favorite kind of concept album, when the concept is to sound mad nice, and it sounded that.
Well put.
So for next week, I want to take us a couple of years into the future, many years in the future. I want us to listen to Igor by Tyler, the Creator.
Nice. Excellent.
Yo, can I tell on myself right quick?
Snitch.
I never listened to it.
Good. Yes. That's great. Oh, I get to introduce Benny to something he might like. Oh man,
it's a good one, Gary. Thank you for this, man. This is gonna be a good one. Not that this means anything, but this is the album that he won the Grammy for. Which again doesn't mean much, but I'm sure it means a lot to him, and it just it's great. Thank you for this. I'm looking forward to this, man. I love Tyler.
Yo, awesome. let me just say as we're finishing up the episode, thank you to our Fred, who introduced his music to our podcast, and we're gonna enjoy the shit out of it. Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, Fred, the Red Walrus. Really appreciate it, man. Shout out, really talented artist. Check him out on Bandcamp. You've been listening to Do It Yourself Music Appreciation. Hope you enjoyed it. Why don't you give Igor a spin? I know I will. Embarrassing to say I haven't heard it, but give Igor a spin, and we'll talk about it next time.
Nice.
Later, guys.
Peace.
Peace.